Hello and welcome back to the Out of Town podcast. I'm your host, Tova Khan, and I'd venture to say that intimacy is the most protected, valued, and important part of Jewish life in general. There's a lot of talk on major Jewish platforms about parenting, motherhood, and while that's important, the solid foundation for intimacy and connection within a couple, in a family unit, is the most important and integral part of Jewish life. So, Taras Mishpacha, the laws of family purity, are imparted to new brides and grooms by their teachers. Today, I speak with 3 different Kallah teachers, those teaching brides the outlook, the lens, and the laws of establishing a healthy and fulfilling intimate life through a Torah lens. So, let's go there.
Hello, welcome to the Out of Town podcast. I am here with the Chani Posner here in Boston, Massachusetts. And I wanted to know if you can just introduce yourself and tell me how you got started teaching college.
Hi, Chani Posner. I never thought I'd be a college teacher. Like it wasn't even in my radar, So college classes, got married. Yeah, that was fine. That was great. In my days, the college teachers were like Rebbitzins, really knowledgeable, older Rebbitzins. Yeah, that wasn't me, right? I moved to Boston primarily to do campus, college students, university students. And as I'm getting to know them and schmoozing with them, when I came, I was very young and I was their friend. And, we talked. We talked about their breakups and their heartbreaks and their, looking for the right one. And it was just a lot of schmoozing. So naturally, when it came to the next step, as they were meeting the right one, who do they turn to? So there I was, like, okay, now what? So yes, I did have to up my knowledge and training. And to be honest, they weren't coming to me to give them college classes. Like the nature of my relationship with them was, I want to tell you about something amazing that's going to have such an impact on your relationship forever. Let's talk about it. So it wasn't even college classes. It was more of that schmoozing, but very focused on what I knew I wanted to give them as a gift that they'll have forever.
Were they receptive to this? Like they were receptive to like the details of like the practice, like I don't know if it's practical, but like the very like unique aspect of, Paras Mishpacha.
It's a very interesting question. So if I would say come for college classes, because there are things you need to know, there are things you're allowed to do, you're not allowed to do. No, absolutely not. But because it started off as, we were friends. I was their age pretty much at first, for a little while. And I wanted them to understand that there's another dimension to this whole love, marriage, etc. kind of, picture. I'm laughing because those who I thought would totally be not receptive were so receptive. I recently got a phone call from a Chabad shliach, a Chabad rabbi. Actually, he called my husband, not me, and he said, I just want you to know we got a big donation to our mikveh recently, and the memo said, I took Kallah classes when I was at Simmons College with Chani Posner, and it has changed my life, and I want you to be able to give this experience to other people, so here's my donation. And I'm like, what? I can't believe it. It was just something that, like, starts off like, yeah, we should do it before the wedding, and you never know. You just never know. It was somebody that I would have never thought this is something that they would take on, on a regular basis. So you never know. It's
And you
one of the
came to
things I learned.
Boston to do shlichus? Like, is that what you came to Boston to do officially?
Yes. Rabbi Enachama Press brought us down to replace another couple that was here, the Perlmutters. And yeah, we came to work on campus.
And specifically Simmons, or you were all over?
Oh no, we were the only ones here at the time on campus. So it was, at that point, it was every university. We had people coming from Harvard, MIT, Simmons, Northeastern, everything.
All the
Berkeley.
universities are here. I can't even imagine a Boston without like
Yeah, no.
all the Chabad crews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then Baruch Hashem, one by one, each one needed its own, and it's been amazing.
Do you teach college from within the Chabad community ever?
I don't push for it. In fact, I try not to, just because I'm so busy, and there's Baruch Hashem, so many out there. Once in a while, they just insist, and I can't say no. I don't want them to, shalom, have to go shopping for someone they connect with. So in that case, yes, there have been, quite a few of those, but it's not primarily what I do.
I have Chaya Reich, well-known Kallah teacher, speaker, teacher, and also author of the adorable children's series Cozy Rosie, which you might be familiar with. I just wanted to ask if you can introduce yourself and how did you get started with teaching Kallahs?
Hi, sure. Okay, so I actually, let's go back for a moment. I was doing Kirov in Russia, and when I came back from Russia, when the doors first opened, we were pretty much the first people to get on a plane when the doors opened. And when I came back, my friends were all enrolled in Tehila Abramov, the one from The Secret of Jewish Femininity. They were enrolled in her course of how to teach Kallahs. And I remember I was married about, a short amount of time then. And I couldn't imagine like they're going to take me. My friends all said, if you're doing Kirov, you have to know how to teach people about Torah Mishpacha. So I said, that's true. So I called her. They had started the course. I'll be dating myself now. I had to listen to the first class on cassette tape because I missed the first one in her house. And then I joined for the second class. And it was just amazing. I was married about 6.5 years, I think, when I took it, something like that, 7 years, something like that. And I was the driver. I drove a van with 8 other women in it. And we were blown away. I had an amazing college teacher, but maybe I was too involved in everything else that I missed things. But when we did this training, which was a 48-hour, 15-week training, I did it twice. 7 years later, I did it again, once in blue ink and once in black ink. I wanted to catch every single word. The beauty of what she taught us about relationships and intimacy and Torah Mishpacha and the Torah approach to love and connection. It was so incredible that I couldn't believe that this is our Messiah and this is Judaism and this is what it's all about. It was so amazing that we cried on the way home, or like in all 3 rows of the van. And I kept saying, when I grow up, I'm going to teach this to other women because no one should not know this who's a Jewish married woman. And then Hashem gave me that opportunity. Very soon after, I started teaching at Gateways, which was also a Kirov organization. So I was their senior lecturer for many, many years. And I took all that training from Rebbetzin Abramov, and that was my piece. I taught a course called, after her book, The Secret of Jewish Femininity, which you heard, I believe, right? I once gave that class in Boston, so you heard it. So that class I gave hundreds and hundreds of times. You can hear it actually on Torah anytime. And I gave that course all over. And now, where I'm holding now, all these years later, I've been teaching Kallahs all along. And now I do something called marriage mentoring. I still teach Kallahs because I still feel that if we set a Kallah straight from the very beginning, that we could change the world. I still feel very strongly, even though I train Kallah teachers, I still teach Kallahs. So the marriage mentoring is, I run a course called How to Make Your Spouse Your Soulmate. Women from all over the world can attend. It's online. You can find it at www.chayareich.com. There's a course on emotional intimacy as a prerequisite to physical intimacy. And then I do a course on physical intimacy. That's 13 hours. That's every single thing the Torah has to tell us about intimacy. And it's really something life-changing for couples. That gets done once a year. And my husband does the same course also once a year for the men.
They both get the same information, the same education.
Yes, which is, it's huge. It's really huge for couples. And the emotional one, women can take all year long. That's always there. And they can just go online and take that at their own pace whenever they want. So through that, I end up mentoring couples. Like if they need more than that information or they need help in putting the tools into practice, so then they'll come to me. So I don't do therapy. And if I feel that a couple needs therapy, I work hand in hand with many wonderful therapists. So that's pretty much where I'm focusing my time now. I want to get to as many people as I can to teach them the this started during Corona. We had a lot of marriages, if you remember, during Corona that were newly married, that was shaky, a lot of divorce going on, a lot of regular couples separating. It was not a happy time for Klal Yisrael. So that's when this started. My husband felt very strongly that I have to do something online and I have to get to more people. And so we went to Rabbanim and we got different Rabbanim to say that, this is the time to do such a thing. So that's when it started and it's been continuing, Baruch Hashem.
I know Emma from Boston for a long time, and you were not always a Kallah teacher. So
No.
what really got you started?
So, Tova, you and I knew each other back in my single days. Like, you knew me long before I was a Kallah myself. So, I didn't get married till I was 30 after looking for a chassan for almost 10 years. And when it came time for me to be a Kallah, I was very excited. My husband was older. My husband was 36. And we were ready. We were ready to jump in. And I was fortunate that I was very close with a Rebbitzin, somebody who I still consider a very good friend to this day, somebody who I still turn to for Eitzah, for advice. She's in my corner. I trust her completely. And she was a Kallah teacher. And I knew she was a Kallah teacher. And when I became a Kallah, I knew I was going to go learn with her. But I also knew that hashkafically, we weren't necessarily in the same place, that she was a lot more conservative. She came from a Beis Yaakov background. She came from Lakewood. That's not who I was. I was a girl. I'm a Baal Shuva. I'm from out of town. We couldn't have been more different. And I knew from the moment she gave me the book we were going to be learning out of, then I started reading it myself, that I wasn't getting the full picture. My husband, also being a very learned person, learned with his chassan teacher, and he went out and bought Sfarim, and he wanted to know what was going on. He very much wanted to take part in this process. And I give him a lot of credit for the learning he did also and bringing that into our marriage. So we learned together and it was great. And my wedding was 10 weeks before COVID. I got married in January 2020, and in March 2020, the world shut down. I went to the mikveh twice, once as a Kallah and a second time before everything changed, right? So that was also very jarring because so much of what I learned about Taras Mishpacha and about going to mikvah changed overnight with COVID. I don't know if people remember, but during COVID, especially those first few weeks, people were, masks and gloves and not standing in the same room as somebody you weren't living with. And so all of a sudden, there was a lot of talk about how do you go to the mikvah safely during COVID. And some ladies didn't even want to go to the mikvah during COVID because they didn't think it was safe. I have a friend who had been married, I think, for about 2.5 years when COVID hit, maybe a little bit more, who was living in another out-of-town community, who told me that she got called upon to be a mikvah attendant because the majority of mikvah attendants in her community were over the age of 50, and they didn't think it was safe. They needed extra mikvah attendants, and they called upon the younger women who were not pregnant to come be mikvah attendants because if they were pregnant, they didn't want to take the risk with the babies. But they needed ladies who were younger, who they thought it would be safer for them to be balaniot, to be mikvah attendants. So I got married, did not have my first child until we had been married for 2 years. I was 32 years old when my first child was born, Baruch Hashem. She's wonderful. That's a whole nother story in and of itself. But in the course of those 2 years, I started talking with people a lot more about Taras Mishpacha. It became a more prevalent part of my life because I was going to the mikveh every single month. And I remember distinctly one person turning to me and saying, "Hey, would you be interested in teaching Kallahs?" And I was completely taken aback by that. Now, at that point, my Kallah teacher had moved away from Boston. So Boston, being a small community, does not have a plethora of Kallah teachers. We have a few. They're incredible, and the work they do is miraculous. But like everything, it needs to be a good match. Every Kallah teacher needs to be the right fit for the right Kallah.
Can I
And when you
ask you
get those,
something?
sure.
Ashkafically, when you realized that ashkafically, your Kallah teachers had just some differences, did you
Mhm.
still follow through and complete the Kallah classes with her exclusively?
Yes, I followed through and completed the Kallah classes with her exclusively. I knew inside what I was getting was chumrah.
Right.
Now, I also was fortunate that I had very close friends with whom I was comfortable talking and asking questions. Friends who had learned with other Kallah teachers and who received different information. I couldn't go to my mother and ask my mother. My mother never learned as a Kallah. I didn't have anybody in my immediate circle. I have a sister who Baruch Hashem is also from, and I could have gone to her, but that's not the kind of relationship we have. But I knew a lot of what I was getting was chumrah. I knew based on the way she was presenting it, I knew based on the sefer she gave me that this was not necessarily the way the halacha is written, and that there were extras in there. And sometimes she would dafka tell me it was an extra. A lot of women learn or zarua. Or zarua in some communities is taught kihalacha. The idea that you have to observe the or zarua. For women who don't know, the or zarua is an extra stringency on when you would separate from your husband in anticipation of your menstrual cycle beginning. And in a lot of communities, that is taught as halacha. And Baruch Hashem, when she was teaching me, she told me, look, this is something that's good to do. If you can do it, it's good to do. But it is a chumrah. It is an extra stringency. Okay, great. That was good. But I knew that there was probably some other stuff in there that I would have liked to know. Also, we weren't learning text. At no point did she bring down psukim. At no point did she bring specific sources when we were learning. And as somebody who learned in seminary and learned in high school from text, that is not my learning style. I want to see it inside. I want you to show me inside the sources. Look, I'm not expecting you to sit down and go through an entire page of Gemara with me. But at least let's start with the psukim. Start with the psukim in Vayikra, or at least ask me if that's something I would like to know, right?
Right.
Give me, even if we don't sit down and look at the sources inside, give me the sources that I can follow up on later.
In high school, I
So,
know everyone's always asking for the sources, and then you get to Kallah classes, and obviously it's a private experience. We're not all sharing how
mhm,
that goes, but I don't hear as many people saying where's the source? It's kind of this fear of I need to do this right, so whatever you say is probably the right way to do it. And
absolutely.
there's also I also noticed that in Judaism and in Jewish communities in general, we can compare. A lot of what we do is community. So we can kind of see what the community's doing, and we'll kind of be able to gauge where we fall, when we're deciding how to live our Jewish life. And we know what's normal, the range of normal. But then when it comes to these halachas, it's so personal and private. And some people don't, like you said, you knew that there was something different. You didn't have all the information in front of you. There are a limited amount of Kallah teachers here in Boston, all incredible, but we don't have a need for so many. And you
Absolutely.
don't get to compare and contrast, which is part of why I invited you to be on here, because I think people can learn so much from the different views. So someone came
And
over to you personally also and said, we need you to do it, which I agree. It was a great idea.
it was. And it's one of those things, just going back to what you just said, Tova. In the first class, I sat down with my Kallah teacher, who at the time was doing a lot of kiruv and was working with Kallahs from all over the religious spectrum. One thing she said to me that has stuck, and I repeat it to especially Bali Tshuva Kallahs I teach, is if you go and live with a frum family, you can learn the halachos of kashrus. You can learn the halachos of Shabbos. You can learn the halachos of Yantif. You can learn any halacha you would need for day in and day out Jewish life. If you go and live with a frum family, you can learn that. You will never learn the halachos of Taras Mishpacha by watching a frum family. It's private. You will never learn the laws of Taras Mishpacha from the outside. It just is. You will learn shalom bayis. You will learn a lot of other things, but you will not learn this. And I think about that so completely, especially that I teach mostly Baalei Tshuva, who when I say that to them, they're like, oh my gosh, you're right. Like, you're right. I never thought of it like that, but you're right. And I was like, yeah. And somebody else pointed that out to me. I didn't come up with that on my own, but it's really, really amazing. And so I was fortunate that somebody I respect came to me and said, I think you should become a Kallah teacher. And I was like completely taken aback. I felt like I was still a Kallah. I like didn't have any kids yet. I was like, what right do I have becoming a Kallah teacher? But it was something that stuck with me. And so I started doing research as to who trains Kallah teachers. So many from Kallah teachers in the United States learned from Tehillah Abramov, who wrote one of the books on the secret of Jewish femininity. So a lot of from Kallah teachers in America learn from her or learn from her students. And that is one of the foundational courses for Kallah teachers. That at the time, that course was not being given online. Again, we were coming out of COVID times. I was looking for something online, what have you. You had to go to, I'm pretty sure you had to go to Brooklyn to take the class. And I was like, I'm not in a position to do that. So I'm doing some more research online and I come across a program called the Eden Center. The Eden Center is a program based here in Israel and Yerushalayim that specifically trains Kallah teachers. They train mikvah attendants. They now train chassan teachers, and they have a very full, well-rounded approach to training their teachers. And they provide a lot of resources. They have one teacher who teaches the course, but every week we had a guest lecturer. We had OBGYNs come to talk to us about contraceptive devices and about women's anatomy and women's health. Okay? Because a lot of Kallahs, the first interaction they have with an obstetrician or gynecologist is before their wedding. So let's hear it from the source. Let's talk about contraceptives. Let's talk about reproductive health. These are important things. We learned from psychologists and social workers about how to spot potential problems even before the couple gets to the chuppah. Helping spot issues of abuse or sexual trauma or violence or whatever have you in advance. And maybe your role as a Kallah teacher, unfortunately, might be to help break up an engagement because your Kallah is not in a safe place, and how to spot that. We learned from therapists. As a Kallah teacher, you're coaching and you're giving therapy sessions. I generally spend the first 15 to 20 minutes of any Kallah class schmoozing with the Kallah. She's got so much going on. She's balancing her mother and her mother-in-law and wedding planning and probably working and getting ready to set up a new home. And now she's got all this halacha thrown in her face. Like any young woman or older woman has a million things going on while she's going through this process. And to just have 15 or 20 minutes of schmooze time can be really centering.
OKClarity.com is the incredible sponsor for this episode on the Out of Town podcast. OKClarity.com is a directory featuring mental health and wellness providers, including coaches, psychologists, psychiatrists, you name it, available to the global Jewish world. You can search based on insurance, location, specialty. Anything that you are looking for is listed there, including events, both in person and online. There are videos posted by the providers themselves so that you have a better idea of who you're reaching out to and can be more likely to be with the proper fit. If you are a mental health or wellness provider, make sure you are listed on OKClarity.com because this is how the Jewish world can find you. This is near and dear to me. I am constantly recommending OKClarity.com for my clients, family, friends who are looking for support of any kind, and they never let me down. So check it out.
You've been doing this since the 80s or whenever. Has there been like a shift in the brides, the Kallahs that you're teaching?
So for me personally, a lot of it has been the same. I would say what's different is that they get a lot of information now from the internet and from here and from there, and it forms an opinion in their mind that's not accurate, or that isn't always accurate, I should say, to be more correct. And now not just the Orthodox offer mikvah, and they offer it in very interesting ways. So there's so much to talk about in saying, if you're going to do it, let's do it right. That has shifted a lot, that the experience that they envision is not exactly what I want them to have, because if you're going to do it, let's do it right.
Yeah.
It doesn't come from classes. It comes from conversations. It comes from having a relationship with the person that they want to hear what you have to say. No one's knocking on my door to come learn from, at least after they become more observant and more into Torah mitzvahs. Yes, absolutely. But before that, I'm talking to them and saying, I just want you to hear what I have to offer, what I want to show you, what I have to offer you, what I want to
I'm
discuss with you.
sure. Have you gotten a response like, wait, you do this? Like that kind of response? Because I can imagine I must have heard that in my time sitting behind the shaitel chair.
I don't think I've ever gotten that kind of response like, you do this, because they don't really know what this is. It's like, to many people that I learn with, either they have like some kind of stereotypical opinion of what this is about, and it's not for me. I don't do this. Or they don't have no idea what it really entails.
They
Many
really
of them
have no
come,
idea.
yeah, many people have come because they needed a tu'udah to get married in Israel, or because their rabbi said, I need a note that you learned with a Kallah. How long is it going to take? Can we do it in 20 minutes? And I'm like, let's talk.
Let's
Let's talk.
I like that. I like the let's talk. Let's have a conversation, because also it's empowering for them. They can always be a part of that and figure
Yeah,
out
yeah.
what
And
it
I'm
means for
hoping
them.
to whet their appetite to hear more.
Yeah.
That's my goal.
I can tell you that the collars keep changing. I used
Yeah.
to say the collars are changing every 5 years. And then I used to say the collars are changing every 2 years. And now I say the collars are changing every year or 6 months even. And I think with the
Good job.
advent of social media, that it's a whole different girl that I'm teaching now. I can't compare the collar that I'm teaching now to the collar that I taught 2 years ago. It's very, very, very different. The girls come in with ideas that they might have gotten online, or then I have very Timmy mystical collars that never went online in their life, but their friends told them, their sister told them, their neighbor told them. So I feel that I think there's a lot. So you ask me such a good question. It's making me think. So what's so different? I think the misinformation is worse than it used to be years ago. That's what I think is different.
I think it
There's a
used to
lot
be
of
more like simplistic, no? Like the ideas that people were getting were probably more simplistic, and now it's like a lot of big information that isn't always relevant, right?
1,000%. And I also think that girls are going online, which I don't really believe in what's happening. There's a lot of Instagram sites that are very open about this topic,
That was going to
and
be
it's
my
not who we are. It's it's your next question. Okay, well, it's not who we are as a Jewish people, which is why I'm not there. I'm on Torah anytime, and we keep it as Torah. And I'm happy to be on this podcast. I'm thrilled to be here, but we have to remember at all places and times, interviewing people, who we are, and who we are are people b'shaman. It says people that are we're not out there talking about all these things on Instagram like it's no big deal. It's very, very dangerous to our own children. And people don't realize what they're doing. It doesn't mean that I'm not the most open person in the whole world, because I am. And we have a place for this. As a matter of fact, I'm part of Anila Dodi. Are you familiar with them?
I'm not. What is that?
Oh, great. So let's tell your audience about Anila Dodi. Okay. The Anila Dodi helpline is a helpline for women. We were trained by women. We were trained by therapists and doctors and Rebbitzins, and we answer the phones. We have a website. It's called the Anila Dodi Helpline. I think it's aniladodi.org if you find us online. We do trainings, and we answer any questions a woman has about intimacy online.
Wow.
No bullshit whatsoever. You have a question. It's not like this quick thing on Instagram and then everybody can answer. It's so dangerous because we have no idea the question the woman is asking and answering. We have no idea what her background is. Not that what I'm doing is perfect at Anila Dodi. I'm only a volunteer. I'm one of the advocates, and I'm a volunteer there. We have Kanai a lot of volunteers. We're all extremely well trained. And I've spoken for them also at Anila Dodi. We're trained to ask the proper questions. So it's not this quick post. My husband is blah, blah, blah. Is that normal?
Is that normal? That's all the questions. Is
Is
this
that normal?
normal? Is this normal?
Is it
You know,
normal?
I have to say that this is something that as an out-of-towner really strikes a chord for me because when you're living in a really big, full, bubbling community, you can kind of like look around and see like what's normal. You can see that's normal, that's normal. But then when it comes to this part of marriage, it doesn't matter if you're living in Yehuffetsville and it doesn't matter if you're in the biggest community. It's meant to be private. So you can't compare and you can't like reassure yourself that it's normal. So I kind of understand why people are going anonymously on Instagram to ask these questions. But what you're saying is there's someone who can really hear you and answer you at Anila Dodi.
Yeah, it's a real problem going on Instagram asking if it's normal, because what's normal for your marriage might not be normal for my marriage. And what's normal for her marriage might not be normal for your marriage.
Right.
You with me? So there's also asking the questions. We have all types of people calling in. So if you have a survivor of abuse calling in and has all types of issues because she's a survivor or her husband is a survivor, we're going to refer to something totally different. We're really a referral. But there are times that I'm on the phone with people for over an hour and the husband might get on the line and we're talking through an issue, and sometimes the advocates can just handle it. And other times we'll refer to a Rav, we'll refer to a chassan teacher, we'll refer to a Kallah teacher, we'll refer to my courses. Oh my gosh, this is a question of someone that has zero education, did not get a good chassan teacher, did not get a good Kallah teacher, and we think they'll be okay if they get the education. And if not, when you finish the course, call us back. Maybe they need a regular marriage counseling. Maybe she has severe trauma because she called to this anonymous hotline. She's having trouble with intimacy because she just opened up to me that she was abused by a sibling.
Yeah.
So right away, if she's posting her question on Instagram, this is a very important piece that's missing right here. You know, that woman cannot take my course. That woman needs to go through very specific therapist that works with the trauma of this type of abuse. And then once that can be healed, then she could come and relearn the Jewish approach to intimacy. But coming to a course like mine right now can just trigger her. Going to an Instagram post and asking a question when the person who is answering her doesn't understand that this is a survivor can be so detrimental to that woman. It could trigger her and put her in a much worse situation. So I feel that being who we are, which is, you know, we're shy, we're tamimistic, we're the Jewish people are not out there. We cover ourselves in holiness. We're holy people. We're not just out there. Oh, this is so cool. Let's like do a podcast and let's talk about this and let's go onto Instagram and talk about, I don't even want to say the word, but the things that I'm seeing on there. Because how do I know? Because I get the phone calls. So Anila Dodi is amazing that it's there. Before Anila Dodi, I did this for 25 years where people would say, oh, I call this lady. You know, my husband can tell you, he would sit in the car with me and we'd go driving to a wedding or going out for dinner. And like, he would just sit there listening to me manning these phone calls. Oh, my friend's friend said that I should call you. But again, I'm one-on-one with them and I can say, tell me your background. What? This, that. You understand? And then I can say, I think you really need to go to this therapist. And that's what we do at Anila Dodi. So now we have a whole team of people and we're really well trained. I wasn't trained. I just figured it out on my own because nobody was doing this. So that's like a little quiet piece that this is the first time I'm saying this online that I've done for many, many years. I don't do that anymore. Everything is really online and people can send me questions who've done my courses and they'll send me questions on email. Don't answer my phone to that anymore because we do have an Ila Dodi and it was really taking over my life. It was something that I did volunteer. And now if someone wants me one-on-one, they have to set up a session with me. So that's what I do now. But it's so much different because, you know, when you call somebody an Ila Dodi, they really can answer your question properly.
Right. So that's a huge shift, obviously. That's very different than what you used to hear. Like, oh, you meet with this lady a few times, you get married, and that's really the end of it.
So I think number one is that role as also a therapist. Like you are a person that these women are leaning on, not just until they get to the chuppah, but sometimes for years and years afterwards. I'm Baruch Hashem in a couple different Kallah teacher WhatsApp groups. Kallah teachers are coming to the table with questions, crazy, scary situations that they're dealing with, looking to help couples. And the bond that a woman can form with her Kallah teacher can last a lifetime. It really, really can. And I think if this is something that as a woman you're interested in, you would have to be prepared to build those bonds that really can last a lifetime. You know,
Yeah.
be prepared to follow up with these women long after the chuppah.
What's like a misunderstanding that you see that the Kallahs have?
You know that expression where people say, like, I'll hear how you want me to put God into my kitchen, how you want me to put God into my living room, but God in the bedroom, come on. And the misconception is that no, it's not going to take what you want out of marriage out of the picture. Just the opposite. It's going to enhance it. Let's talk about it. We know how delicate marriage is these days. We want everything on our side. And you know, who made us? Who knows our psyche? Who knows what makes us tick physically, emotionally, psychologically? And he's the one who set up this system for us. Let's talk about it. Let's hear about it. What can it do for your marriage? Of course we do it because Hashem said so, not for the benefits, but that takes its time to come into the conversation. Again, depending who it is. I teach, very observant, eager Kallahs also. But the bulk are people that I want to sell it to them because I love it and I want them to understand why and to try it and see what it could do for them as well.
Okay, so a misunderstanding, I don't know where it's coming from and it's still happening and I'm very troubled by it. I think the Kallah teachers now are pretty amazing and quite well trained. We do have some older Kallah teachers that have not gone through new trainings. Most Kallah teachers are constantly training. I'm part of a WhatsApp group, a core WhatsApp group. Do you know about core?
I don't.
CORE?
That's
Okay,
great.
look them up. They're amazing. Look up Core Jewish Education. There's an amazing woman, Aliza, and she started this incredible, really for out-of-town communities. Aliza Below, you might have met her. She started for communities to go to out-of-town communities and give Rebbitzins from out-of-town communities support. So she started this group so that people can have circles of influences, and she has all different circles. Like there's the Kallah teachers where we support each other. There's people that do taras on bodies, and they have like a community that they need support for each other. There's,
Great.
all different, like whatever it is that you do. So Aliza Below started this group, and we all support each other. And so I think that there's a lot of support going on and a lot of courses going on. And in Nila Dodi, we also run courses, and there's a lot going on for Kallah teachers where you can keep learning. Whatever's posted, I go to everything that I possibly can, just because I feel like the more I learn, the more I can give it over to my women when I do my course that I do online. Okay, so the misunderstanding is that I still hear women who come to my courses or who I meet with one-on-one. I still hear women saying that they were taught that no matter what, they have to be there for their husbands at all times and they can never say no to him about anything. That's a huge misunderstanding.
How is that happening?
So
How is that information being shared still?
I'm very troubled by it. I don't know why it's still being shared, because whose mitzvah is mitzvah onah? It's the
Isn't it?
husband's mitzvah. So why is that not the first thing taught to a Kallah? So I don't know why that's still happening, but that's the
In the
very first
ketubah,
thing.
anything in the ketubah, especially, I've noticed that college have no idea what is in the
Right.
ketubah at all, and they have no idea whose obligation is to who. And now I have so many friends who are Bali Tshuva and Gerim, living out of town. You meet so many inspiring people. They're like, "What do you mean you never sat down and learned what's happening at your wedding and what your marriage is about?" They can't believe it. But it is true. It does kind of slip under the radar because either you assume someone else taught it to them, or they're just mistranslating things. Like someone says, "Oh, it's so nice to be available to your husband." And then someone might be hearing pressure. I might be hearing, "I have no other choice." It could be also, do you think that it could be a mistranslation? Like, just like not spoken about in a more direct way, in a clear enough way that people can understand how to navigate that?
So it's interesting. You asked me a two-part question. The second part of your question was, what's missing that the Kallah teachers are not teaching?
Yeah.
So maybe you just answered it yourself, which was brilliant in asking that, because maybe that's the piece that's missing. Maybe that piece, I mean, I go right into the Ksuba and I teach them what it says there, that a man has to provide their wife with food, shelter, and mitzvah onah. And we go through learning all about it. So maybe that's the piece that's missing. And maybe not just like saying it very quickly, which we're not going to do here. You'll have to come to my course to hear how
Right.
we go through that specifically and what it really means. But that's many hours with a Kallah explaining what that really means. So I think the piece that's missing is what that really means. And what that really means is teaching a Kallah about herself emotionally and physically. And we need to teach right away. My lesson number one, I start in a very small way. Intimacy is put in a small way. And I put it in through every single class. It's not like the last class, 1 hour. My Kallahs, I teach 24 hours, between 22 and 24 hours. I do between 12 and 15 lessons. And this is put in everywhere. So in other words, it's not shock, 1 hour before they're going to learn, in 1 hour. They're not going to learn in 1 hour, because I think that the thing that Kallah teachers need to know is that we need to teach our Kallahs about marriage, not just about the wedding night.
So, as a mother of girls, I know that this is getting me just thinking, as a little bit of a side note, is there like concepts that are easy to fit into conversation as our children are growing that will kind of help them like be in the right mindset? So, or the way that we raise our children, is there something that you can think of that mothers can do so that it doesn't all just fall on a Kallah teacher at the end of it, and that mothers don't feel lost? Like, what did I forgot to fit this in, because intimacy exists in families and relationships in general. So, to some extent. So, is there any advice that you have to mothers? Because that's where my
Yes,
mind
I do.
is.
Yes, I have a lot of advice. First of all, be warm with your children. Be physically warm with your children. Hug them, and even your boys. Boys need touch. Boys need touch, which is why they fight a lot. That's how they touch. They fight with each other. So that's part of touch. That's a love language. But even if it's a pat on the back, when they get a certain point, they're too old. They're never too old. So they may not want the mother to hug them or kiss them, but a pat on the back or a touch on the arm. But don't forget about being physically touching your kids. Now, some women come to me and say, my mother never hugged me. My mother never hugged me. My father never touched me, which drives me crazy. My husband speaks to the men and he says, you must touch your children, including your daughters, in a healthy way. A healthy hug. What does it mean?
Right.
What does it mean? This little 2-year-old or 4-year-old or 6-year-old or 8-year-old is going to grow up. Her father never gave her a hug. What kind of nonsense is that? What happened here? This is not who we are.
Yeah.
So that's number one, to hug your kids and even your boys. The boys, you'll see as they get to a certain age, they don't want their mother to give them a hug anymore. So a pat, something, a word of encouragement. It's emotional as well. It's an emotional closeness. That's number one. Number two, for you girls, don't ever, 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 I'm going to add one more ever, crush their femininity. It's something that's been happening in our world, and the consequences are horrific.
Yeah.
Because I have women getting married that are really men. And when a woman takes on masculinity, their husband can't be masculine. They've stolen it from him. A woman has to remain a woman. I spent 2.5 hours in my workshop on this, on one piece. A woman needs to be feminine. And sometimes they come into marriage and it's all been taken away. That's not sneers. Make sure your hair's in a ponytail. We don't dance like that. We don't walk like that. We don't, laugh like that. Like, what happened to us? Like we could see a 2-year-old or a 5-year-old, dance. Oh, not maybe 5 already is too old, or we'll say, oh, don't dance like that. On Shabbos afternoon if they're dancing around. But a 2-year-old can dance like that, and we'll say, oh, it's so cute. Look at the 2-year-old. We keep knocking away our girls' femininity. Knocking it away. Even when you go shopping and they put something on, you probably have very little kids because you're very young, but you'll see, as you'll have teenagers, they'll put things on that are really not sneistic, that's way too tight for them. So instead of us saying, oh my gosh, that is no, you can't, it's so tight, it's not sneistic. Instead, we have to switch that to, wow, that really makes you look amazing. But this is not something to go on the street with, that like you look too amazing in that. Like this is something that we have to like put aside for when you get married or something like that. So instead of us knocking out all the femininity, no, this is beautiful. I once heard this amazing story. Someone just told me an incredible story from many, 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 many years ago that, like for a European story where a girl came out with a beautiful dress that she had custom made. And her mother said, show Tati the dress. So she went out and she did a little spin and everything. And she showed Tati the dress. She was a Kallah maidel, but she wasn't engaged or anything. She was whatever, 17, 18, 19, like that. And he looked at the dress and he said, it's absolutely beautiful, but this dress is not for now. And then when she became engaged, he called her over and he said, now is the time that you can wear this dress when you get married. So it was such a beautiful story because the concept was you look too good in it. So we can't take away from, our girls want to look beautiful. So we have to switch it to, yes, let's be beautiful in the right context, in the right time, and in the right place. Channel it, and let the girls do their hair and, be feminine and all of that. We can't keep pulling the femininity away from them because it has terrible repercussions later on.
I do see that in my chair. There are some girls who are wonderful, wonderful, from girls. And then when it gets time to do their hair or makeup for a simcha, and they're like, I don't even care. And I'm like, is that considered better tznius that you don't care? I said, that's actually kind of sad because, sorry, Menu, people said she looked beautiful. They saw her. That's how they knew, like beauty is something that we value. And obviously there's tznius in that. But it just makes me sad when these girls think it's a maila to not be feminine and to not care about these things. And then imagine these girls are going to get married and suddenly the reality that femininity exists and is beautiful is going to be shocking to them. So I hear what you're saying.
And that's exactly what happens, by the way. And even more so, you have a girl like you just explained in your chair. Many husbands want to see them with nice makeup and nice hair.
Yeah, and it's
and the girls don't want to do it. I have cases like this
where... Do they ever look down on their husbands for wanting it then? I can imagine that happening. Yeah. These girls freaking out. Oh my gosh, I thought I married a Baal Midos and he wants to see me dressed up. Imagine they probably think that's also a problem.
You just hit the nail on the head. Absolutely.
Wow.
That's another question. What's wrong with my husband that he wants me to get my nails done? What's
Wow.
wrong with him?
What's wrong with
Is
him?
that normal?
I've been hearing, is that normal? Since I got married, like, because once you enter the married club, I feel like then people, you hear the college, you go to Turo College, you hear the murmurs like everyone just got married. So it's still happening. Is this normal question? You would think at this point we know it's normal for you. It's normal for, like we should know. A lot of new college just don't always feel confident. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm the Shaitelmacher, right? So
Right.
people sit in my chair and I hear like people like who show up at mikvah, let's say, and they feel like I don't know if I did anything right. So is there a misunderstanding there, or is that just the normal progression of becoming a Kallah and learning your comfort in the mitzvah?
I think it's twofold. One, I think that there's a certain amount of uncertainty no matter what. No matter how good of an education you receive with your college teacher, there's going to be a certain amount of uncertainty that first 2, 3, 4, 5 times you go to the mikvah. I know women who've been going to the mikvah for years and we schmooze about it and they still don't feel like they're doing it right. Like I have a good friend and I remember breaking down crying to her when I was trying to get pregnant, being like, I hate going to the mikvah. I don't find this as a spiritual experience. It's so hard. I just want it to be over. Da 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 da. On and on. And she's like, "Yeah, I've been married for 5 years. I've yet to have a spiritual experience at the mikvah. It just doesn't happen for everyone. It's like, Baruch Hashem, everybody has things that are spiritual for them. The mikvah isn't necessarily a spiritual place for everyone. So that's one. Two is the stress of feeling like you prepared properly. And there's a certain aspect of that to a degree, we should feel that way about a lot of other mitzvos too, right?
That's a fair point.
Like Baruch Hashem, we for preparation to go to mikvah. Like I sit there, I have my checklist, I run through it. Did I clean my ears? Did I clean my navel? Did I comb my hair? Da 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 da. You know, but are we as like stressed about whether or not we're keeping Shabbos? Because we're stressed. Are we as stressed that we are keeping our kashrus as appropriately as we are about going to the mikvah appropriately? Are we as stressed about our lashon hara?
So why do you think we've is it because it's our mitzvah that we're like this we have to do perfectly?
I think it's because A, it's our mitzvah, and B, it's something we feel like we're doing alone. There's
I can get
nobody
that.
to check us, you know? If you feel like you might be or you are or whatever mechalel Shabbos, if you go and flip the light switch on Shabbos, right? Somebody's going to call you out for it. If you do it on purpose, if you do it as a joke, whatever, if you do it by accident, we've all been there where we're like standing against the wall and all of a sudden the lights go out, right? Usually in somebody else's house, but sometimes in our own, right? Like we're not doing it on purpose. I don't know a single woman who's like purposefully not preparing appropriately to go to the mikvah, right? Like we're doing the best we can. We're doing the best we can. And if we come out of the mikvah and all of a sudden we realize we forgot to take off a Band-Aid, or we still have some fingernail polish on, or we forgot to take off a piece of jewelry, whatever it is, there's a solution to that problem, right? So I think that stress that you're hearing with your sheitel clients comes from this internalization that I'm doing this alone and that I don't feel like I have anywhere to let out that stress or anybody to whom to ask those questions. A lot of Kallahs who, Baruch Hashem, have mothers who go to the mikvah and hold by these halachos don't feel comfortable to talk to their moms.
Do
Now,
they? I wonder about that. Because so many college teachers are like, don't talk about this with your mother.
so I've never heard that, which I think is very interesting. But thinking think about it. I just want to point out Kallah teaching, being somebody who sits down and teaches a Kallah is a post-Holocaust response to a problem, right? Pre-World War II, when you got married, you sat down with your mother or your grandmother or your aunt, and some member of your family taught you the halachos of Taras Mishpacha. They did it in the Soviet Union. They did it in Poland. They did it in Germany. They did it in England and France and Morocco and Iraq and Iran and wherever else there were Jews around the world. The protocol was that your mother or your grandmother or your aunt or some matriarch of your family sat you down and explained this to you,
Wow.
right? And they taught you how to prepare to go to the mikvah. This was not some third-party lady. Having somebody else, whether it's a rebbitzin, a teacher, a mentor, come in and teach you these halachos, and for this to be coming from outside of the home, is a response to women being orphans and women having nobody else to teach them. So all of a sudden, it was incumbent upon the community to carry this mitzvah and to help these orphans make sure they knew what they were doing. I'd say about half of the ladies I trained with were dafka coming to learn the halachos in order to teach their own daughters. They wanted
Really?
to feel they had a mastery of the halachos, so when it came time to take their daughter to the chuppah, they could be the one to sit there and teach their daughter, which to me is the absolute pinnacle of teaching, is for you to sit down and to teach your own daughter, for you to teach your niece, for you to
I
teach
think
your cousin.
that's like a goal for like a relationship. Like it's not just because like how
Absolutely.
many people would be so uncomfortable, mothers and daughters. It's like to be able to focus that you want your relationship to be such that this is a place that you have that connection and relationship. Wow. I don't know
I
if
would
that's a goal even for everybody.
It may not be a goal for everybody, but wouldn't you want your daughter to come and talk to you about anything and everything? Like, isn't that the goal for most mother-daughter relationships? Now,
Yeah.
I won't say that, that is the goal. That is the goal I have for my relationship with my mother, and that is the goal I have for my relationship with my daughters. That please God, until 120, that I would want them to come and talk to me about
Yeah.
anything and everything. And please God, in 20 years, when I get to take my daughters to the chuppah, that we will get to sit down and learn these halachos together. And please God, when it's time for my niece to get married, I have a niece who's 12 years old. She Baruch Hashem, she lives not far from us here in Israel. And we spent Shabbos Chol Hamoed Sukkos with them. So this is actually my husband's cousin. They have 3 beautiful daughters, and the oldest one was bat mitzvah last year. And they have a beautiful minhag in their family that after the Suda on Shabbos day, the parents sit down and learn 10 minutes with each of their children. It's
Oh.
beautiful. It's private time that the parent takes and sits and learns something with their child. I've never seen this before in any family. They have 3 beautiful girls, and they sat down and learned with them. And so the oldest daughter asked if I would sit and learn with her. Her father was learning with her sister. Her mother was learning with her other sister. And I was besimcha. We sat down and learned together. And it was lovely. And we were learning Vizosa Bracha together, which was super appropriate, coming up to Simchas Torah. And I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, and in about 8 years, you're about mitzvah now, 8, 9, 10 years. Please God, we're going to sit and learn the halachos Taras Mishpacha together. Or better yet, your mother's going to teach you. Please God. But that to me is the ultimate, yes, it is an ultimate relationship goal that the women in your own family you can teach from and learn from. So as I said, when I got married, I had a married sister. I didn't feel comfortable asking my married sister questions. Now today, my sister and I, talk about it whenever we need to, right? She knows the ins and outs of the Israeli system. She lives here in Israel. She knows the ins and outs of the Israeli system in a way that I don't. She's called me when she's been overseas and needed to deal with stuff in the States, right? Because I knew the States and she didn't know the States. Amazing. But not every sister has that relationship with her sister. Not every aunt has that relationship with her niece. My sisters-in-law are not from. Please God, one day I hope to be able to take them to the mikvah, but I don't, you never know. You never know.